Hi guys, it's Amanda and I'm here with my first book review. I've been reading a lot, but I haven't actually taken the time to do a video book review yet. If you want to see some of my reviews, you can check out my blog. I'm not sure if I'll do that many reviews on BookTube, but I figured the first one makes sense to be the first book that I read for my classic challenge, which, if you don't know what that is, just check the link out that I've put in the box. The first book that I read was Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. This is a very, very interesting book. I've seen most of the movies in relation to Peter Pan and they're a lot more sane than this book. I mean, yeah, I think J.M. Barrie was sexist and probably didn't like children very much, which makes me wonder why he wrote a children's book. Like, on every second page he's saying children are heartless, or children are arrogant, or all these things about children, which, although it's very opinionated and may be true for some children, seems a little bit odd for him to be preaching to children, because this was seen as a children's book. That being said, some of the things that are referenced in this book are a little bit odd, and if it was trying to be released today, it would not pass as a children's book at all. It's one of the only children's books I've ever come across which has actually gone away with referencing orgies, which of course the fairies were having orgies, and it was completely brushed over as if it didn't matter. But I can just imagine if I ever read this to my kids, they'll go, "Mum, what's an orgy?" And I'll be left going, "Oh, it's a fairy tea party." And then they'll start asking me if they can have an orgy at their birthday parties, which is going to cause problems. So not one I'd necessarily suggest reading to a little kid. And I'm actually quite glad that I left it till I was older. I've been wanting to read this book for 12 years or so, and I finally made it through it, and he was nuts. Like, I haven't read Alice in Wonderland, which I hear is absolutely whacked out as well, although that's one of the ones on my list to read for this classic challenge. It's just, he is absolutely bonkers. One such example is when he just tries to describe what the Neverland is. And I don't know quite what he was on when he wrote this, but in a way it's quite clever and really captures the imagination of a child. Of course, the Neverlands vary a good deal. John's, for instance, had a lagoon with flamingos flying over it, at which John was shooting, while Michael, who was very small, had a flamingo with lagoons flying over it. Okay, how odd is that? Like, if nothing else, it's like, I'm just going to put lagoons flying over the flamingos just because I can. But it does capture the imagination of a child and makes you wonder why not. There were a lot of wonderful quotes in this book, but I found most of them were just as present in the movie as they were in the book, and the movie captured the essence of Peter Pan a little bit more, in my opinion, which is funny considering everyone thinks this is the original text, although the original text, in fairness, was a play, so I think that's one of the reasons why it translates so well to film. One of my favourite quotes from this book that didn't make it into the movie was the quote right up near the beginning, which tells about how Mr. and Mrs. Darling married, and I think it's a really witty quote and it's brilliant, but it makes you wonder throughout the whole book when you're going to get more of it. The way Mr. Darling won her was this: the many gentlemen who had been boys when she was a girl discovered simultaneously that they loved her, and they all ran to her house to propose to her, except Mr. Darling, who took a cab and nipped in first. And so he got her. How brilliant! I think that is a great way of turning what you would expect and just flipping it on its end. But it sometimes pops up and it sometimes doesn't, and sometimes the language in this just feels rambling for the sake of rambling. But also, the Peter Pan in this book, I don't know whether I like him or hate him. Like, I can see how many people have turned him into a villain for games, books, or movies, but he sort of toos and froes between a loving hero figure and just an uncaring, vague, for lack of a better word, child. Because he's meant to be a child, but sometimes he is a different sort. He's got like multiple personalities. And in a way that's kind of what makes him charming. But it's a little bit odd, and I'd still recommend watching the movie before reading the book because it gives you a better idea about what's happening. While the movie, I think, had a better relationship happening between Wendy and Peter, I felt that the one thing that the movie was lacking was the brilliant ending that this book has, which they eventually cut from the movie, which is a real shame because it's one of those tragically beautiful endings that I just love and really sums up the truth that comes with this story. So even if you've seen the movie, I'd recommend reading the book, but you know, it's a little bit odd, and don't be prepared for it not to be quite what you're expecting based on the films. Still brilliant, still great, just a little bit odd. Okay guys, that's it from me. I'll see you next time.